Hi, welcome to Contempo. I am your host, Roberta Markbright. Thank you so much for being with us and for sharing with us. And please help me welcome Norman Kozak. Welcome.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate you having me.
It's a pleasure to have you here. You're going to enlighten us.
I hope so.
You are really a motivational person, and one of the first things you want to do now is to have a kindness day in this country. Tell us about your quest to have that done.
Well, I was written up in the Chicago Jewish News on St. Valentine's Day about a year ago. I had written George Bush asking him to proclaim a National Kindness Day in America. And when the Chicago Jewish News got wind of it, they were kind enough to write a column or several columns on me with regard to it. I also wrote President Obama with regard to it, and the First Lady wrote me back a letter acknowledging my writing and so forth. Mayor Daley, I also wrote him for a city kindness day, a Chicago kindness day, to quell the violence that's going on, to combat the violence, especially amongst teenagers. And he was kind enough to write me a letter and say that his associates were considering doing it, but now that the Olympics has come to the foreground, it's sort of receded a little bit in the background.
But it will happen. Now, you said that Australia is the only country in the world that has a day like this.
That's what, through my research, I was able to come across. I may be in error about this, but there is a World Kindness Day. There have been random acts of kindness day. But in my research, I was not able to find any kindness day that was a national kindness day other than the day that Australia celebrates it. And in Australia, it's been so successful that they've lengthened the kindness day from 1 day, and it's now 16 days.
Fabulous. That's one. Maybe it'll go to 365 days. Now, as an example of your motivating, what leaps out of your resume is the fact that you went to the basketball players of South Shore High School recently, I guess 2-3 years ago.
Well, it was longer than that, but
let's go into that and talk about that.
Well, my friend Nathan Yellen and I, who have written this book called The Coach and Us, we had been graduates of South Shore High School, and we felt it would be a good thing to go down and talk to the athletes about motivation. And we spoke to them mostly about training and developing willpower. You know, there isn't one school or one team or one university in the United States of America that has a program for training and developing willpower. And yet, willpower is at the basis of every activity. All athletic accomplishments begin with willpower, and when the will fails, the battle is lost. So we were able to escalate their willpower, get it to rise up to a fever pitch, and when they went to play on the basketball court, they had a big advantage because they were all jacked up and all pumped up, where the other teams were not.
And they did very well that year.
They went to the semifinals. They lost on a fluke buzzer-beating shot by Jamie Brandon at that particular time. It looked like the one that runs the buzzer didn't want to buzz it until the shot was made, so it was a long time, but actually South Shore should have won. But we were called back. I got a letter from the principal and from the head coach, who was assistant principal as well at that time, praising us for our work and asking us to return again.
So they asked you to come back 1 or 2 years later. You are very focused on the will or willpower, because
yes, I am.
As you say, it's everything that makes us do what we do. And let's talk about that. You've done a lot of reading of the classic writers from the Greek and Roman days all the way up to the present day. And they've made a tremendous impact on your life.
Yes.
And you've learned to incorporate inside yourself everything that they have taught you.
Yeah, the philosopher Rene Descartes said amongst the powers of the mind, the will was number one. So, you know, that's what motivated me, and then just got me going on this trek, more or less, and kept me on it and so forth.
Now, besides your experience at South Shore High School, you've been to other places as well.
I've been to Truman College, and my cousin, Dr. Ray Candleman, invited me to come to speak at Truman College. He was a professor for students for teaching English to students for a second language. And I gave a talk on willpower there, and they were unanimous in their praise of me. They all got up and applauded at the conclusion of my talk.
What did you tell them? Just pluck out some things.
I told them that take the word goal, the first two letters of the word goal, spell goal. Slack equals lack. Things of that particular. When you coast, you're toast. Things of that nature,
Yeah.
you know. And these little wise sayings. The will is motivated by a lot of aphorisms or wise sayings. And if you remember two or three of these wise sayings and memorize them at the optimum moment in a game situation, you could call on them to motivate your will. They will enhance your will at that particular time.
Do you think that the students began reading these classic books that are so beautiful? Did they tell you that? Did they share that with you?
Well, I don't know. Not too many of them that I know read classic books, but they were...
But you opened up their eyes to it.
Yeah, I opened up their eyes to this and so forth. The will is the most powerful factor in every great and noble thing that people accomplish.
Mm-hmm.
And the will is to the mind what exercise is to the body. Go ahead, I'll let you talk.
No, I let you talk. You're our guest. People don't have generally a lot of confidence in their own willpower, or they doubt their will, they second-guess themselves. And how can they overcome that?
Well, first of all, you have to make them aware that they do have a will.
Mm-hmm.
You have to get them to realize the value of the will, that if they want to accomplish something and make something of themselves, it's going to be hard to do it without having a strong will. So once they become aware of it, that provides an impetus for them to develop it. And consequently, through will training and the methods that the great thinkers have come across, that I've learned, that I present to them, I could see their will going from weak to intermittent to very powerful.
Beautiful. You know, some people are really born with that. I don't know if it's motivation or confidence. Some people don't have to be taught. They seem like they're born with it, or their parents encouraged it.
Yeah.
And it's so interesting. And then there are other people who need to be taught when they're older. It's kind of fascinating.
Well, a classic example of a great will is Michael Jordan. I mean, he didn't have to be taught to be motivated. I mean, he's just one of those persons that is fired up all the time and has a very high motivational intellect and so forth. So with him, you can just let him be as he is, because he's the greatest basketball player in the history of the game.
It's interesting, his incredible skill with his motivation, and look where he went.
Yeah. But you can call on significant others. In other words, if you talk about a parent, or there was a saying that win one for the Gipper, you know what I mean? And if the person connects with a significant other in his life, a parent, a big sister, or a big brother,
a mentor,
and so forth, to jack up his will, then his will become much stronger as a result.
It's wonderful, and the dreams are crystallized. Let's talk about the book that you wrote with your friend Nathan Yellen. Very special book.
Yeah, I really appreciate you mentioning that. Let me read what I wrote.